you watch the general eagle flying through the dirt, making tire squealing sounds. I'm like, huh?
Right.
Tire squeal on dirt. My uncle taught me that. He says that doesn't happen. And he says, watch, I'll show you. Took me out in his V6 Mustang, and we did a hauling ass down the laneway in the farm field, and he pulled the e-brake and slid the car. He's like, see, no squealing.
No squealing.
Tried to do a burnout, and he covered the car in mud. See, no squealing. That was my best memory. So.
Welcome to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast, where we dive into the high-octane world of market-leading shop owners, shop employees, and automotive enthusiasts from the aftermarket, restoration, performance, and racing industries. So strap in as we take you on an awesome journey with our guests as they share their real-life stories, lessons learned, business advice, and unfiltered insights to help you beat the school of hard knocks. Gearheads and Gasoline, fueling your success.
Hello everyone, I'm Barry Alt with Motorhead Digital, and my co-host is Annette Bauer with Annette Bauer Creative. We're excited to welcome Jesse Henke, a co-owner of JH Restorations, to the Gearheads and Gasoline podcast. From tinkering in the garage to gracing the halls of the SEMA Show, Jesse has lived and breathed the automotive world. Since 2005, he has been dedicated to preserving automotive heritage and pushing the boundaries of performance. Most recently, his team took home a top 4 finish in the 2023 Battle of the Builders with their stunning 1987 Merkur RS4 Ti. We're pumped to have Jesse on board, so let's dive in.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jesse, for joining us. We're so happy to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you, Barry and Annette, for having me. Appreciate that.
And it's super awesome to meet you. Informally, of course. I've not had the pleasure, but hopefully someday I will. With that, we always like to start the podcast off with kind of a different question, and that is, what's your favorite drink?
What's my favorite drink? Well, alcoholic or non-alcoholic? I mean,
whatever.
Kid drink that I drink with the kids at home is grape Kool-Aid.
That's a
little squirty and a bunch of ice. Yeah, there we go. Favorite other drink? Gonna be an odd one, like a Labatt 50. Like I'm an old guy, so I like the Labatt 50.
Labatt 50, that must be a Canadian thing.
It's a French-Canadian thing. You can't even find it in Windsor. I have to get it shipped in from some friends that live in Montreal. So it's hard to find around here.
Nice.
And it comes in the big chubby bottles. If you've ever seen the big beer bottles, we call them big chubbies.
The big chubby bottles that the guys that hang out by the corner of the drugstore or the convenience store get in the cooler there. Yeah, we know which ones those are.
You'll find me not there.
Not there. I will not be there.
Cool. What about you guys? If I can ask that, what about you guys?
I actually don't drink that much, so my drink of choice is chocolate milk.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Or water. So
very healthy choices.
Yeah, very, very healthy choices. Yeah, I don't follow that lead very well. Right now it's coffee this morning, but generally I've been getting into old fashions and trying different things like that. I am a Cabernet Sauvignon guy, so I do have a decent stash of wine that I enjoy.
He's a wine snob is what he's trying to tell you.
No. Our producer is a wine snob. I am not even close to a wine snob. I do berry pours, as Dean would call them, which is like half a glass, twice as much as I should. There we go. There's my goofy camera there again.
Yeah, I forgot all about the wine thing. Like, I mean, we've got a bunch of wineries around here. So there's the County Road 50 wine tour, and they've got some pretty good wines. I did that for 5 or 6 years. Not an alcoholic kind of thing, but every once in a while they have like a meal prep with the pairing wines and stuff like that. So I did that for a while. I don't know. It's just, and then that craft beer craze kicked in, and they did that around here, and it kind of got a little bit tired. I like to just kind of grab my beer, sit back, and enjoy it in the garage or in the basement, whatever.
Not do the whole experimental thing. Let's try that.
I did it for a while, but I mean, at the end of the day, how many sours and high IPAs and blueberry white beers can you have? I mean, I just want to pound it back after I'm done cutting the lawn.
Yeah, we have a lot of wineries around here. We're in the Finger Lakes area of New York, and I have a lot of wineries, a lot of craft distilleries. But my default is a Cabernet from California, actually, and I'll do a Stella or draft Yingling all day long, right?
Stag's Leap.
What's that?
Ever had Stag's Leap?
No.
Ooh, it's so nice.
Well,
Good steak.
we're going to SEMA. You'll have to introduce me if they have it out there. So
Right. You buy the steak, I'll buy the wine.
okay.
Silence.
He has to think that. He's processing that. He's like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Well, I'm bringing on my friends to drink wine, and they can buy their steaks. I'll buy yours. How's that?
That works. That's good.
Well, anyway, Jesse, we wanted to have you on because you have a restoration shop up in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And you've been in the business for quite a few years, Battle of the Builders winner. And we wanted to talk more about how you got into this business. What really drove you to get into the restoration business? I know your brother's involved in it as well. And talk to us about that a little bit, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I mean, much like many of the guys out there, we grew up around it. I grew up in River Canard, a little town outside Windsor, or a little homestead outside Windsor, if you want to call it that. And there was a local circle track checker flag here, and two of the guys at the gas station, two of the younger guys, sons of the owner, Sean and Ryan Doopy, were racers. And when I was old enough to walk, ride my bike to the store to get candy, I'd go in and get candy and walk around the corner and see what's going on in the garage. And I showed enough interest that they eventually just put us to work, taking the cars apart, pounding out dents, replacing sheet metal, going through the scrapyard and finding parts after the cars got smashed, put them all back together. Those are like Thunder stock cars. And then there was late models, so they were running two different divisions. And we just hung out in the garage. And then from there, my dad was owner of a heating and cooling business, and so he had all the brakes, shears, all the sheet metal forming equipment. So then he started building panels for the race cars in the garage, and then the rest of the race guys that were racing would ask my dad to build more stuff, and then it went from stock car racing to drag racing to hot rods, and that's how it all kind of really began at the beginning. Never really thought about getting it into as a career in my younger age. I mean, I didn't know much about hot rod shops. There weren't any around. We had one local speed shop that sold parts, but no real shops building cars in the area. To speak of, there's guys in their garage, obviously. And when I grew up, on the street, we had a half a kilometer long street, and there's probably 50 people on the street building cars, hot rods or whatever. So we go to garage, but it wasn't probably till late high school, college years, I started kind of thinking of owning my own business and what I wanted to do. At the time, I was building a Beaumont Canadian sister car to the Chevelle, so I was working on that and was going to school for nursing. And it kind of just fell in my lap. I had been working full time as an engineer at a local company, and they started downsizing, and I had a choice to go to St. Louis or Mexico to continue my career with that company, or take a buyout. And I took the buyout and went back to school deeper into nursing, went back to take some updated courses to move forward with that, and ended up opening a small shop selling parts. And from the parts, it evolved into, winter storage. And then winter storage said, the car's sitting there. Can you build me a car? And it just went from there. So here we are just shy of 20 years later, and that's where we're at.
Did you take and go to school after that for any automotive things, restoration service, painting, anything like that to get to learn more skills, or was it on the job training kind of?
It was all self-taught in the beginning. So because it started at a young age, I was 5 to 10 years old helping my dad with his heating and cooling business and building parts for race cars. And the same thing went for my brothers. So we all worked together, as it was a lot of hands-on. And then through shop classes in later grade school, and then into high school, shop and automotive all the way through. And then for my college years, it was an automotive product design. So not so much the hands-on part, but why the cars are designed they are, the up-and-coming technologies. And at the time, it was just 3D printing wasn't even thought of. Battery powered cars weren't thought of back then. So it was all very hands-on in the local college. And then all at that time, I still had the core group of guys that grew up on the street with me, like on our street growing up. And then I had some friends in college that they were all working on cars, and because I had the experience, I was kind of leading them through what needed to happen with their cars. And from there, it just went. As far as a business owner, I've taken some business classes to kind of learn more about the business, because I never entered in knowing what the end of the business, never knowing what the business end was going to be like. But as far as hands-on, tech or anything like that, no, I didn't have any experience with that stuff. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about business, because one of the things we've learned over the years, a lot of people that get into the auto restoration or building cars, they don't know the back of the house stuff.
Right.
from accounting to getting proper accountants, lawyers, even marketing, things like that.
Mhm.
And that's where they're really good at what they do in the shop, but then they run into issues on that side of running the business, paying taxes, things like that, hiring people properly. Have you had good experiences with that, or do you have kind of a school of hard knocks story that some shops do?
I was always the more cautious one. So the people that originally started working with us, like, of course, my dad was here from the very beginning, and my youngest brother Jordan was here from the very beginning. But when we brought people on, it was people we knew. Like, I worked at Home Depot as a part-time job through college and high school, and one of the guys that I worked with, his family owned a small business. They did landscaping, but Bob Bazaar and I developed quite a good friendship when I worked at Home Depot. And then years later, when I started the business, I ran into a car show, and he had bought a Trans Am and he wanted to have it restored. So he started coming in and helping with the car. Like, he came in and dropped the car off, said, "Hey, I can come in and help if you need." So he came in, helped me take the car apart, helped me organize it. And then that just led into, oh, do you need, he's looking for a part-time job. He worked midnights at Home Depot. He had a lot of time on his hand. His wife was a teacher. So after Home Depot, he'd come into the shop for 4 hours. So he came in, and then his brother worked for Windsor Factory Supply, and he started working in the office for us. So it was a lot of, at the very beginning, people you knew, because it was really hard to, take that leap, and hire people that I didn't know, and people that I trusted, and we had that opportunity to do it because our overhead was low. The investment in the products was low. The shop rate was low. I mean, I was just paying myself and paying my brother to build cars. So in the earlier years, it was easier to take on people we knew. As it went through, our sales marketing guy, Glenn, who I think you've had the pleasure of meeting, Barry.
Yeah, I can't
He
remember.
actually was building a Hearst Olds 442, and we had his car in the shop, and we had no hoist. And I was on my back under his car, putting a 403 in it, and phone rang, and he picked up the phone, Jay's Restorations, and from that moment on, 15 years ago, he's been here.
No
So
kidding.
after that, it got into more specialized. It started getting outside because we built the business on doing sheet metal. And then we would farm out the paint, farm out the interior, farm out most of the mechanical stuff because we didn't know enough, we felt, to bring the cars on and do it all ourselves. So we built good relationships with other shops in the area. And then what ended up happening from there is, when you're building shops, then you try to get into timelines. I mean, as much as you can. So then you couldn't depend on the body shop. Not that they were bad shops, but they had their collision work they would do first, and then our cars would come second. So then we started pulling people in from those body shops to work for us. And then we opened the body shop. And so it's just a slow evolution. And then, like I said, we had an engine builder here for a while who was a mechanic. He was all self-taught. When we were getting too busy, we hired more people to help him out. So that's just how it's been a slow evolution over the last 20 years. Could I have done it again, knowing what I know now? I might have done it a little faster, but we're enjoying where we're at now, and it is what it is. So.
But your success of like how you've gotten to where you are, right? Like understanding hindsight is always 2020, right? We always can sit back and say like, hey, we would have changed this, or we would have, in your words, done it faster or whatnot. But you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now in your business, right? Like how your growth has been, what you've experienced, how you've worked through the positives and the negatives because of your tenacity and that determination to continue and to grow. You've gotten to like, hey, this is where we are now. Yeah, we always can look back and say that we have changes that we could have made.
Yeah, I mean, we had a discussion the other day about things like, as an owner, you am always being told by the guys, you need to realize what you can and can't do anymore. I mean, with my life running a shop, with having a young family, I've got 2 boys in their teens, and we've got a 2-year-old daughter. So my life gets distracted. I don't have all that time after work to sit back and do paperwork and plan and make phone calls. I'm having to learn to let go, which is the harder part now. I've got people that can do the job, and I need to learn to depend on them. And they want to do the job. So that's where we're at right now, is handing off some of those responsibilities, giving Jordan, my brother, a little bit more. He can only take on because we just found out he's expecting as well. So his life's going to get really busy really quick. But the other guys that are here, we've got a really great team, and we just do our best to find the right people that are a good fit.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we have a book we like called Who Not How. It really talks about that, how to delegate to people that know certain things that you're not that you shouldn't be doing sometimes, or that you need to pull yourself away from, and understand that it's good sometimes. It's hard, right? Because you want to have control of stuff. And so it's definitely hard to do. I have a question for you as far as, because we have a lot of people we're hoping watch this and learn from you.
Mhm.
Is there one thing that you would have done differently in all the years? If you picked one thing as far as starting the business and running the business, what would have you done different?
Probably knowing myself and having a little more confidence at the beginning. Like, and that's kind of a question that has to be, or sorry, an answer that has to be explained. I'm 46, so I started this when I was 26. So the people that I was working for were 46, 50 at the time. And they would come in and say, what do you know about my car? I drove it in high school. My dad had one. What do you know about the car? And I always knew more than they did, not trying to be arrogant or stuff, but because of my background, I've been doing it for since I was 5, 7 years old. I knew how the cars went together. If you've worked on a Mustang, you worked on a Chevelle, you know what's going on. So I think the confidence in the beginning would have helped out a little bit more build the business. Having more of a not a confrontational avenue, but instead of taking a step back when people would approach me about saying that they knew more or that I didn't know enough, standing up for myself more in the beginning. I mean, for the first 2 to 5 years, it was a tough go because I was the young guy in the block, and we are the only hot rod shop in Windsor that's survived 20 years. And we were the only one at the time when we opened. There are a couple more, a couple of them come and gone since then. But had we done that move sooner, had I taken that sort of a self-belief sooner philosophy, then I probably would have been a little bit further ahead in the beginning. But other than that, it's just like knowing who you are, knowing who your team is, and having confidence in those people. It was a hard, long lesson. Not in a bad way, but I'm a self-reflective person, so I spend a lot of time thinking, what could I do differently? And I've had to step outside of that box and realize that I am doing a good job. I am doing the best that I can do, and I've built a really good team.
But I think that, like, you bring up a really good point, right? Which is actually very relative to today's generation and just overall business mentality for a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, which is we kind of all get in our own heads at some point and experience that imposter syndrome, or we think like, man, I'm not sure that this is what I'm cut out to do. Like, I shouldn't be doing this, or like you said, I missed the boat. I should have done this earlier or whatnot. But you don't know what you know until you know it.
Right.
And it is 100% about having that confidence and understanding that people hired you to do something because they don't know how to do it. Right. And so if you go into it with that mindset of thinking like, I know what I know, like, and I'm confident in what that is. And they came to me because they need my help for something, and just believing in ourselves a bit more to have that confidence, like you're saying. I think that, it's easy for us to say that, but it's hard to put that into practice all the time.
Yeah, it's hard living your life like that every day, especially in the markets that, if you're in a niche market like something like we are, where you have no other confidant to talk to about it. Other business owners are one thing, but there's nothing like this world. There's nothing like building custom cars. You could be a custom home builder, you could be a custom deck builder. There's nothing like building custom cars. From the expense to the personalities to, the vehicles you're working on, to the knowledge that it takes to build all these cars and to keep it upstairs or to keep it straight and, organized, or to depend on your people. It's a lot, and realizing that you have the team and have the right personality to do it, or the right drive, or the right connections. Every day you're learning and every day you're evolving. And like you said, it's very hard to look back some days and not have imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Am I getting people to do things that they don't really want to do, but I want them to do it right? So there's all these questions that you ask yourself every day, but it's a constant battle. It doesn't matter if you've been in business for 2 years or 20 years or 50 years. I think you're always going to ask those questions. So.
Yeah. And when you have somebody who's older than you coming in and they start putting that doubt in your head, even if it's not warranted, right? Because we have to also consider what the source is. Because sometimes some of those older people come in and they place that doubt because they don't have confidence in themselves, right? So it's easy for them to forecast or to project their feelings onto you because they're either not confident in your skill set, even though you are, until you prove it, or they also want to doubt your skill set because they don't acquire it.
And what I'm finding now on the flip side is now I'm in my 40s, and the people that we're building cars for between their, say, late 20s, some of them are between their late 20s into their mid 30s. So now we're into another genre of car that I don't know as much about. So I'm having to learn that. So I'm back in the same boat I started off in when I was younger. Now I'm older, and these kids do know more than I do. They just can't do the work. So now I have to try to, as a shop, try to split the difference, saying, listen, we can build a SEMA car and it's, $200,000, and that's the quality that goes into that car. But it's the same quality that's going to go into your 96 Civic, so our ability is there, but it's having them understand that work, because they might know the cars, they know the histories, they know the numbers, they know the powers, the rarities, and all this other kind of stuff, the engine swaps. But at the end of the day, it's work to get the job done. So it's having, knowing your customers, having those discussions up front, and moving on. But it's really funny how it comes full circle sometimes.
Plus some of the newer technology, right, that are in those cars versus something from the 60s or 70s, and learning how to work on them, right? I'm assuming there's a lot of different things that go into that and learning that. As we talk about your shop and stuff, we're here at Gearheads and Gasoline, we're really huge on youth engagement, and we talked a lot about your team and stuff, but what do you do about bringing new people into the industry, working in your shop? Do you do any work with local, schools and things like that?
Yeah, we have. We've tried to bring in people and give them an opportunity, whether they're older or younger, opportunities that they aren't afforded at home, aren't afforded in school anymore, because it's more one-on-one. There seems to be a big generation gap between like what I knew, what I was taught in school, what we learned, the shop classes that are available, and the quality in those educations. And then because when I grew up, it was part school, part my father, part my grandfather. My grandfather was an immigrant from Germany after World War II. He was a farmer. We worked on the farm. We fixed the farm equipment. We built the barns, and kids now don't do that. They don't get out and work on a farm. They aren't, the vast majority there are, but the vast majority aren't. The cities get bigger, the towns get smaller. And so what we've done is we've reached out to some of the high schools. We have, we got 6 kids in here under 21.
Nice.
And we've pulled them in. So we've got a co-op student that comes in part-time. Keely is one of our fabricators. She's actually going to school for mechanics, auto mechanic, but she does a lot of fabricating, a lot of mechanical. She's been here for 2 years. We brought her on, and she learned from the other guys in the group. Ethan's been here almost 5 years. He's one of our leads in the body and paint department now. And the young kid has got a lot to learn, but he's a very talented young individual. Jordan, not my brother Jordan, we call him Little Jordan. He works with my dad and the fab guys on that side of the shop. He's been here for 2.5 years. So we lead him through. And then some of the guys are just young people we pull in off the street. And we had a gentleman come in, a couple weeks ago. We try to give him a shot to see where he's at, to see what he could do to help us out. We just try to take that risk and get these kids in, and we're finding that a lot of time it pays off. So, so say for the 6 or 7 that we've had in here, there's been probably 5 that didn't make the cut, and not that they weren't good. It's just longevity. Like, don't want to do it long term. They came in to try it out, and we gave them the opportunity to see what they knew, and
that just wasn't for them.
Yeah, that's great that you're giving them opportunity, right? To let them at least try it out and see if it's something they want to do.
Yeah, because in turn, then they go back and they report to their guidance counselors or co-op teachers, and then they tell them about the experience. They tell their classmates about it. Then those classmates tell their younger brothers and sisters. If you like this, they can do it. So we've actually got we've gotten 4 returns from the same school, and Keely's younger sisters, her cousin, is looking at coming on. So it'll be kind of cool.
That's awesome. I love it.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Annette Bauer Creative. At Annette Bauer Creative, we understand the power of visual storytelling in transforming brands and driving growth. From capturing the essence of your products and services to showcasing the unique solutions you offer, our professional imagery and reels help bring your brand to life. Fuel your brand and ignite your vision at AnnetteBauerCreative.com.
Yeah, like I said, it's just... we have a good environment. We try to split it up in the body and paint department with keeping 1, maybe 2 over there. Mechanics side, we try to keep Keely in on that side. Our shop is long, narrow bays, so you can't really get more than, say, 5 people in a bay working at the same time, just for time constraints or constraints that go on in the shop. But we try to do the best we can to keep the young people involved with the older guys. And as the older guys are sort of timing out, like my dad's cut his hours down from 5 days a week to 3 days a week, the younger guys are stepping up and taking over.
And that's it, right? Like that's a big part of one why we have so much involvement in the youth engagement and the youth generation. Because one, right, just like you said, the older generations are all retiring out. They've got a different kind of life that they want to live now, but they've got so much generational knowledge and experience that having that process of kind of handing down that wealth of knowledge, right? Handing down what their experiences have been to that next generation so that those people can come in not only being more confident and successful at what they're attempting to do and to work on, but also maintaining the same kind of quality work that you do because now you're bringing that from generational knowledge. I think that's incredible that you guys are making an effort to do that, reaching out in your community, and that you really have kind of figured out like, hey, when these people have a great experience and they've done well, they do, understanding that they do talk, right? And they do share that information with other people within their sphere, their peer group.
It's been very beneficial. Like even the other shops in the area, we do a lot of work with some of the other shops, and they're like, "How do you find these people? How do you get involved in it?" Just you reach out to the high schools. You capture them when you can. We have cars and coffee days. We have the guys bring their kids to it, and it's just trying to get exposure. Like a lot of people are focused on the collision shops are focused on getting cars in, getting cars out. They don't have the time. I mean, some of the smaller ones try to take on restorations, but they just don't have the time anymore. It's thousands of hours that go into them because in a lot of cases you're dealing with cars that are 40, 50, 60 years old. It's way beyond what a collision shop has time to do. Their skill set might be there. I'm not doubting that at all, but the time that it takes to do it is far beyond what they can handle. Just on the flip side, we would never get into trying to do collision work every day. It just, we don't have the skill set. We don't have the insurance contacts, and we don't have the connections with parts for newer vehicles to get the vehicles repaired efficiently. So we try to work with them as much as we can. We have them do work. We've even got owners of collision shops sending us their vehicles to be restored because they know it takes a lot more time than they can afford to have in their shop. And even some of their employees are like, I can do this, but these guys are going to do a better job quicker. Mm-hmm. So we've developed those connections as well. So.
Yeah, that's great. And what I like to hear, like hearing you say that you're bringing people and you're educating them, you're working with them. I've talked to a number of shops. I don't have time. I need help, but I don't have time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to set that time aside to tutor some of these, especially if it's kids that really want to do this and are really interested and put in the effort, right? Even if they start by pushing a broom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said, what we found is we try to we have a pre-interview. So if the school calls us and, hey, we have, John Doe, he's coming in, he's got a knowledge background in, I don't know, sheet metal or mechanics or whatever it happens to be, and his dad helps him out a little bit. Then we have the kid come in, we talk to him, show around the shop, ask him his general knowledge of tools, vehicles, what does he drive, what has he done, what's he doing at school, or what is she doing at school, to see what their background is, and then to get a base knowledge. And then from there we kind of say, okay, you're going to spend your first little bit of time, because you've got the most experience, is going to be in the mechanic side. And you're right, they're going to push a broom, they're going to hold the transmission stand, they're going to jack the car, put the jack stands under, because we have to figure out, like, we have to remember way back where we learned, what did we get done? When I was working on the race team, they didn't come in and say, okay, you're pulling an engine out the first day. They said, sweep the floors, and then when you get under the car and you're sweeping, look at the underside of the car. Where do you think the jack goes? So they started teaching me that at a very young age so that I wouldn't get hurt. So we have to keep that in mind, that, we all go in the back. We don't always have safety glasses on. We don't always have gloves on, but we have to make sure these kids do. So we're trying to impart that knowledge back to them and start off until they can prove that, hey, I already got this. I know. Let's move beyond that. And we do. And some of them come in and they just have a knack for it. Ethan came in, didn't really have a background in body work, but man, that kid, he can do it. You put him in there the first couple of days, we're like, wow, he knows what he's doing.
That's awesome.
Same with Keely. And it comes from their backgrounds too. So, Keely was, she's big into sports. So she knew about responsibilities, timing, leadership, getting up in the morning and getting the job done. She does a lot of equestrian work. She's at a horse farm. She's getting up, cleaning the stalls. If you get a kid that comes in and says, well, I play games on Saturday and I get up at 10 o'clock in the morning. okay, not saying I can't work with you, but it's a different approach, right? I mean, my
Right.
sons play, one plays video games, one plays with Legos, so
Right.
you kind of know where their knowledge base is. One thinks he knows how to do it, the other one knows how to do it, but they're both very smart children in their own rights.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have any in the industry, whether it's now or 10 years ago, do you have any mentors that you've reached out to help you with things, to guide you along, other than when you were coming up through and just working at shops as a kid?
In the broad industry that we know of, like the big hot rod industry, no, not so much. We had some, again, because when we came in, Windsor is a small town, and because we were the only shop here, the mentors that I had were my dad, Hurdy Doopy, who owned the gas station around the corner from us, who owned the race teams, and then an instructor from school, Barry Maskery, and then it was just all the little connections you made. My landlord for the longest time was really good bouncing ideas for running a business. Saw him coming because his family owned Teal Manufacturing. They built big car carriers. So they had run a business. They did the engineering. They did the fabricating. And even into today, I still have other business owners that help us. Like we're looking at changing our business model, like how we do hourly rates to, budgeting builds. We have other people that we talk to now, but right off the bat, nobody in the bigger industry. I think pivotal parts were when we started getting into bigger vendors, when we started having to call people like National Parts Depot, ACC Carpets with Randall Bates. I mean, he was the one that gave us our sort of first big break. So I look up to him and thank him for a lot, because that opened the doors to then talk to the Mark Bowlers and the Ring Brothers and everybody else. That now you've got your foot in the door and people know who you are. You can start asking questions. So I'd say probably right around 2015, 16 is really when JH took a big step forward, is when we started breaking into that crowd. We'd gone to Autorama and we took 10 cars to Autorama. And before that, we could have gone. But my brother and I, we're not good enough. We can't do that. We can't put it on a stage where people are going to see our cars. So one year we just said, okay, here's the best cars that we built. Let's just take them all and group them together. And it got a tremendous response. And then from there, we took my Beaumont, and then we did the hot rod restoration trade show. It used to be in Indianapolis before PRI. I think it was the garage shop and then became part of PRI. I don't really know how that all played out, but that's where we met Randall. And we had a Beaumont on display there with Jonathan Goolsby was there with his Fastback Mustang, and Jesse Greening was there with his Thunderbird. I think they just won the Riddler with the Thunderbird. So we got to talk to them. So then it was like, now we've kind of starting to make this work, so we had contacts there. And then when the opportunity for SEMA came up, Randall's big mistake in us was really paid off. So
was that, where did so Randall was the person that got you into SEMA, right? Was that an Armo booth car? How did that work?
Well, how it happened is because of the connection with the Beaumont, Randall knew who we were. And they were looking for a car for the Armo booth. They wanted something that was restored, but not, full pro touring at the time, custom chassis and things, much like we're working on today, but it was in the beginning stages. And Randall called me and said, hey, how would you like to build a car for SEMA? Have you got anything that can go? I mean, we didn't. We were working on a project that if we really pushed ourselves, we could have gotten done. So I was super excited, the butterflies are going. I'm like, yes, I'm pumped. I want to do this, but what are we going to take? So I said, yeah, Randall, I'll get back to you. He says, let me know in a couple of days. I've seen your work. We've seen all the projects you've built. And a little light bulb, little question mark goes off in my head going, all the cars we built. What have you seen? I'm not sure. So anyway, sure, no problem, Randall. I'll call you back. Hung up the phone, went and talked to Glenn, who's a sales and marketing guy, but we were also building a car for him at the time. We're building a 65 Olds 442. And went to him, asked him, said, how would you like to switch gears to the car a little bit better? And we take it to SEMA. And of course, he's eyes big as saucers. He's a sponsor guy for years. And he's like, this is our big opportunity to show people what we can do. Talk to my brother, and he's excited, but he's probably a little more timid than I am. He's like, are we going to do this? How are we going to get this done? And we talked to the rest of the crew, and we talked to some of our customers, said, listen, guys, we're going to work on your car, but we've got to really put our foot forward to get this done. So a couple of days later, I called Randall back and said, yeah, Randall, I think we've got a car. It's in process, but to get the pictures you need of the car and to get the information about the car, and he'd be honest with you. We're going to be busting our asses to get this done. But we'll get it done. And again, he made the comment, well, I've seen your work before. I saw that red Chevelle you did, and I saw a couple other builds. And at that time, I'm thinking he meant Beaumont, because his sister car to a Chevelle. And we just said, well, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for thinking of us. It's a small company from Windsor, Ontario. And he paused. He's like, oh, yeah. He says, yeah, you guys are really great. And I like your work. So we went back. We continued through the build. So we took a step backwards. We ended up cloning an LS engine, looked like an Oldsmobile, redid the chassis. Incredible car. Guys really pulled out all the stops. And as we're getting closer to Armo and the unveil and, having to send pictures in, Randall would call us and say, so where are you? And we took a picture of the car. He's like, you seem like you're a long way away. No, don't worry. We've got the interior fit, the engine's fit. We're just, final body work and getting it done. Right. And he goes, well, the good thing is you don't have that far to travel. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you're just in Ontario, California. And we're like, no, we're in Ontario, Canada. He's like, you're JH Restorations, right? I said, yeah. Unbeknownst to us, there's a JH Restorations in California. So he thought we were them. And we were building this car, and he thought we were that. At that time, now Randall's going, oh, crap. It's an unknown now. So he was like, who did I get to build a car for Arbo? And the whole time, we're just got little snippets of the build. Like, here's the engine, here's the chassis. Because we'd never done it on this scale before. Right. And up until the car rolled in, he'd never seen it finished. So when the car rolled in the door, it was a big pat on the back. He was happy. The rest is history for us.
He was like, oh man, you saved my ass.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. He's like, thank God this car came out. He says, because I'll be honest with you weren't the shop I thought you were. So we sort of other JH Restorations if you're listening to this, but that's how we got our start. So.
That's awesome. And both Jesse and I are in charge of the booth cars for Armo this year. Mm-hmm. And we had one car that we're like, we need pictures. What's going on? We're actually going to send somebody out there to look at it because it's pretty nerve wracking because of the level of car that we expect, that everybody expects to see at SEMA. So that's an awesome story, Jesse. How many cars have you taken to SEMA over the years?
We did a 65 Olds in 2017. We came back the next year for Edelbrock in 18 and built a wide body 66 Coupe Mustang. Then we did a Toyota Celica for Edelbrock the year after that, and then COVID hit, and then we took the Merkur. So we had 4.
And tell us a little bit about the Merkur, because that got the top 4 in Battle of the Builders. It's a big deal.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be said about this car. I've known it for years. Going to high school, my friend Tim, we used to bench race. He had this little Merkur. I had the Beaumont, which is better, North American. His Germans engineered stuff's always going to kill North American muscle cars. But anyway, so we would go back and forth. So we drove to school in the car. We did donuts in the front yard of the school in the car. Nice. We raced through we went on lunch breaks and raced through the town of LaSalle in our cars. I had a Pontiac Grand Am, which we won't speak of, and he had this Merkur. And I mean, all of us had cars, and we were just they were nothing special to us in what was a Merkur back in the day, but it was a lot of fun. Entering our first job, Tim and I worked together. We drove to work in the car for the first year or so of that job, and then it got put on the back burner. He was going to clone it to an RS 500 car from the UK, because that's what you did in the late 90s, early 2000s. Everybody was doing it. From there, he had a career change. JH started, more focusing on the shop and building muscle cars and doing full-on builds. And there was not a lot available for Merkur, and that whole scene just kind of dropped off by about 2005, 2006. They were gone. Like, nobody was really doing much with it. So he moved away. Car got sold for way under the value to another guy that had a Merkur here. It got robbed of all its parts, and it sat in his driveway as a parts car. And right around 2019, I think, 18, 19, I'd seen the car and contacted the owner because we work with him. He does all our dyno tuning. And I said, what are you doing with that Merkur? And he says, nothing. I was going to scrap it. You want it? And so I bought the car back with what was left of the parts for the same amount that Tim sold it for him, 10 years previous. And I said, I'm going to build it. Maybe I'll build it for myself. I'll do it the way Tim was going to do it. And I'll just, as I work on the weekends and stuff, I'll build a car. And then it was like, well, there's nothing left of this car. Maybe I should buy another one. So I bought another one to use the parts from that car to restore Tim's car. Well, that car was too nice. So now I have 2 Merkurs. And now enter today, I think we've got 6 of them. So there's
geez.
a bunch of parts cars back because everybody that has one needs 1 or 2 more for the parts to fix the one.
Yeah.
So what happened when we bought the second one, the 89, we ended up turning it into the clone car. So I went on a worldwide search for all the original RS 500 parts that I could find, all the cladding for that car. And in the meantime, we were working on Tim's car, and we had taken his fiberglass kit. We were trying to build onto it, make it fit the car. And then it just became apparent that, this is not going to work. And then the idea came in, let's build a SEMA car. Let's kind of take that jump and show people what can be done with a modern car. Mm-hmm. Still not supposed to be the car that it turned out to be. Supposed to be a lower scale. We weren't going to change the interior. We weren't going to do the 2-3 swap to it. We were going to leave it pretty much the way it was, update the body kit. But then as renderings went and imaginations went and drive went, the car turned into what it turned into. So we got, Ford got involved and said, why don't we do the 2-3 for the 2-3? So we did that. And then the designers said, well, if we amalgamate the front headlight panel into the front bumper, it'll clean it up. Okay, good. And then my brother said, well, why don't we build Corvette hubs so we get a 5-spoke lug on it, or 5-spoke wheel on it, 5-lug wheel on it, sorry. Then the car got wider. Then it exploded, and then it turned into the car that it turned into. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun building the car, a lot of memories. I hadn't talked to Tim in well over a decade. He had moved away. He kind of was living his own life. And it allowed me the opportunity to kind of reconnect with him, because when he sold the car, the ownership got lost. So it never got transferred to the new guy, but I couldn't buy the car because there's no ownership.
Right.
So I had to try to reconnect through friends to get a hold of him. So I got a hold of him. So that's, we do some reminiscing. We talk about music and video games, and we chit chat back and forth once in a while, but it also rekindles some of the other relationships I had from college and high school. So on a personal side, I have a lot more friends than I had,
Nice.
Wow. In the last few years. I brought back the old friends, and then we made a lot of new friends, and a lot of, people in the industry decided, hey, this is a really neat build. We've never seen anybody do something like this before. So it allowed us a little deeper delve into, what Ford can do, what the engineers can do, what rapid prototyping can do, and all that kind of stuff. So we did learn a lot and had a lot of fun with the car.
That's cool.
When you plan to take it, you said we're going to build a SEMA car out of this. When did you decide to enter in Battle of the Builders? Because that's a big step. And I've seen a lot of posts from SEMA lately asking for, enter your car for booth cars, Battle of the Builders. And what can you tell other builders to give them confidence that their car they should enter that, and they should get them into booths and things like that?
Well, as a car builder, what your car is. If you've been watching the industry and you're building a Camaro, you're building a Astro van, whatever it is that you're building, you look at the other vehicles that are comparable to your car, and your ability. It's even with, or no, not quite there. In your mind where you're at. But all I can say is, if you're young or older, if you're building a car that you think will stand out against a crowd, then do it. And that's what it took. Like we tried it with the wide body Mustang, and it was a Mustang. It was a wide body. It was a coupe. It was well received. It just didn't make the cut. We thought the quality level was there, but it just didn't make the cut. And there are a lot of cars that get submitted, and you wonder why. You scratch your head. How did it make it? Like when we got chosen, and we were in the Toyo Tires booth, and we're looking at Ferraris, we're looking at BMWs, we're looking at all the other fantastic cars. Why did this car get chosen? And the only thing that ever comes back to us is it is different. Nobody's ever done it before. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to do something, come out of the gate with all guns blazing with something way different, or do what other people are doing, but try to do it the best you can. Don't set out to necessarily be better. Just do your own thing the best you can. And if you're confident in that, then you should enter it in.
Yeah, enter it in, and you never know what happens, right?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, because it's subjective. It's up to the people that are looking at the cars. Do they like it? Do they like the engineering? Did you do a lot of engineering? Did you go outside the box and use a theme? Did you fill it? Like with this car, it was the updated. What would Ford have done to this car had they had the tooling and the wherewithal and the drive to make it a popular car? Then what would it look like? And this is what we came up with. So it just depends on what you're working on, whether it's your craftsmanship and that's your skill. Put it all into that car. If you're a painter, do the best job you can to make the car stand out, because it's a whole encompassing package. This car is not perfect. You can look at it and say, well, look at the paint, because we built this car for Battle of Builders but we painted it before we ever had it in the Battle of the Builders. So the original silver paint is still on that car. We didn't strip it down to bare metal and take it all off. We fixed the problem areas and built a car because it was never supposed to be what it was, but it turned out to be the car we wanted it to be. And it worked out.
And that, speaking of that car, I've seen it everywhere. You've had it ever since SEMA. That gave you a huge boost, right? Have you actually gotten any business from all the press and everything from building this car? Has it helped your business, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, and on so many levels, little bits everywhere. It's helped with suppliers. It's helped with vendors. It's helped with engineering. It's helped get things pushed through quicker. It's brought people in the door that said, "Hey, I saw your Merkur. Can you fix my Firefly?" It's helped every avenue of business. I mean, is there any one avenue that it just jumped? No. Recognition has been huge. The car has been absolutely everywhere. I mean, whether we took it to a show, but it gets posted. Battle of the Builders has done it. SEMA's done it. Wagon Fest has posted it. Everybody that's seen the cars shared it everywhere. So from a branding standpoint, I mean, everybody knows who built that car. But did it bring in a flood of new cars? No. We have 2 Merkurs builds, one from California, one from Calgary. Do I want to be a shop that builds Merkurs? No, but I mean, I will work on the cars and we'll restore them. So it's been a facet in every bit of business that's helped us out. It's helped with, on a side, it's opened doors with other builders to say, "Hey, I like what you're doing." And it allows a conversation with other shops to say, "Hey, we're working on things too. We just don't tell people." So they're starting to tell people that they're working on Supras and Civics, and because it's not the norm in the industry right now. But it is going to be the norm, and it is fast becoming more accepted to build something not so mainstream, because the generations are changing. You're always going to have the old 32 Roadsters. You're always going to have the muscle car era, but we're going to have to deal with cars like this. We've got a guy that wants to do a Beretta GTZ. Who does that? But he wants to modernize a wide body of Beretta. Okay, we'll do that. We've got another guy that wants to make an all-wheel drive car out of something that was never done that way. So we're working with people to do that because that's what they want to do. That's the cars they remember. So.
Well, I think it's cool, and it's really great that you guys are taking on that kind of approach to it, right? Because so for me, I come from the performance racing side of the industry, and kind of like you're saying, you wanted to build something that was quality that represents your shop, excuse me, but also different, right? Because like you said, that's the one thing that stood out for that car was it was different. And that definitely has a leg that it stands on within the industry, because in the drag racing realm, right? We see a billion different Camaros because they're so aerodynamic, right? But gosh, it's so nice to see a throwback to a Willys or, anything that isn't a Camaro that we just don't frequently see these days, right? We see a ton of different cars, but they're all a version of a Camaro, and you're it's cool, it's great. I'm a huge Camaro fan and I love it, but I also like seeing something different. So for example, huge highlight for me is I just did my first drag and drive last week, and as a photographer I covered the whole event. And one of the things that I absolutely loved the most about it was the variety of cars that were in it, right? From very modern cars to definite builds that were intended to be purpose-built race cars that they turned into street cars. Right. And it was just the coolest thing to see the variety that we don't often get to see, especially trackside anymore, right? We see a lot of the same stuff. Right. So I applaud you guys for taking an approach at, yes, it wasn't what it was. It didn't start out as it intended to be, but you built it into what it was supposed to be, right? And it was, like you said, very well received. And I love that you guys took a different approach.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it was done for so many different levels. I mean, for me, we go back to owning a business and where you come from, where you're going, what do you know today? I'm looking at the future. I've got these kids that are with me that are under 20 years old. I'd like to be able to pass the business down, whether I stay on as an advisor or run the business, but they have to have something to work on. They have to have, there has to be a business that recognizes the different, the new, that takes on something that people don't. And we've never done the same thing twice. We've done Camaros and we've done Novas, but none of them have ever been the same car. We don't, there's not variation on a theme, as you kind of called it. We've done, Mopars, we've done Camaros, we've done Mercurs, we've done hot rods, we've done some work on boats. We're helping restore an airplane. Now we're going to keep those things on the outside, but as far as the core business, like, we've never done the same thing twice. We've got three Mopars in here at 3 very different levels of build, not quality, build expense. I guess that's not even the word, but build design, we'll call it that way. One's a slightly updated car, one's a more like wide mini tubbed and supercharged Gen 3 Hemi, and then the next one's a roadster shop chassis car. So there's a bunch of different things that we've done, but our JH's business model is it's hard when you talk about a standpoint of what things are going to cost, because we don't do the same thing twice, but it also affords our employees to use their imagination more to get the job done. It also shows people that there's a broad spectrum of work that we can do. So we enjoy doing the different.
Yeah. And we talk about, like, for the youth generation, like, coming into the industry, right? There are so many different things that you can do. Like Barry would say, like, you don't have to come in just to wrench on a car, you don't have that doesn't have to be your primary source. Like, there's so many different avenues that you can explore within the automotive industry that allow you to shine and show what your creative talents are.
Yeah, if you could find a young person that knows computers and knows the industry, and get them to run your social media. Like, I mean, we've all, as older people,
that's exactly what we've
Kevin
talked
does a
about.
fantastic job with mine. Barry, you've done with yours, but have those kids love those cars and then take what we do and promote it to the other people, because I don't know how to do it. I don't have I'm not as engaged with the youth as maybe I could be or should be, but get these kids, and that's what they do for your business, because you need that awareness. Our website traffic versus Facebook traffic and Instagram. Our Instagram's way up here. Facebook's down here, and we can see who's looking at what. And you need the younger people to share it. You also need the older people to see more on Facebook. But that's, I don't know what you know, but it's kind of dwindling on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. They're just taking off like crazy, and all the other social media platforms,
Right.
So they get them involved from that point, or doing CAD, like a kid that likes to sit in front of his computer and design stuff, whether he's an artist or not, get them to do renderings. And not very many people are hands-on when it comes to paper and pencil anymore. They want to draw on a computer because that's what they learn doing.
Well,
so
especially with all the 3D printing, right? And the CAD design and the machines that run off of all of that, right? Yeah. I do want to touch on one thing. I have a story about Camaros, okay? Because Annette mentioned that, right? We restored back when I was learning to paint and did stuff in my garage. We restored a Camaro, but back when I was growing up, I got CarCraft magazine. If anybody remembers that, it doesn't exist anymore, if I recall. But one day I sat down a whole 12 issues of CarCraft magazine, and 10 out of 12 covers had a Camaro on it. And I was like, what? So I was a big 69. I like 69 Camaros and 70.5 Camaros. But that kind of, I went the other direction, away from them to like AMXs and things like that, and unique cars. I was never a Merkur fan, but I love your car. I love what you did with it. I always thought they were kind of strange looking, but and same with the younger generation. I used to be really, what are these rice burners? I just didn't understand them. And ever since being involved with SEMA, I really do understand them. And I think it's so cool what they're doing. I mean, the horsepower they're getting out of 4-cylinder engines and what they're doing with them is insane.
Well, and what's funny to me is, I'm not a huge fan of the Fast and Furious franchise, right? I mean, I watch it, but I watch it from a standpoint of like, that's never happening. How did they do that? It's like, come on. But being the age I am, going back and watching the earlier ones, because my kids love them. So going back and watching them now, I'm like, I get it. I understand now. I know. So it was like American Graffiti and all those are Dukes of Hazzard and 18 with all those cars. This is what it is to them.
Yes, 100%.
And it's just awesome because it's just a light bulb goes off. It's still the newer ones but they have the cars I love, and the kids follow them all the way through. And that's where our business, we're starting to get them from, because I grew up with Fast and Furious, but I couldn't afford the Supra, but I like the Jetta. So they were doing an all-wheel drive Jetta with an Audi TT chassis. So it's like
I like the Charger with the blower on it.
Yeah. that somehow jumps the train track with no
Yeah,
ramp.
somehow did that and still kept going, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the General Lee folds in half, and you're like, "Hey, how did that do it?" Or the
Yep.
best thing that I always remember from one of the early lessons I learned as a kid was, you watch the General Lee go flying through the dirt, making tire squealing sounds. I'm like, how does
Right.
a tire squeal on dirt? My uncle taught me that. He says that doesn't happen. And he says, "Watch, I'll show you." Took me out in his V6 Mustang, and we did a hauling ass down the laneway in the farm field, and he pulled the e-brake and slid the car. He's like, "See, no squealing."
No squealing.
Tried to do a burnout, and he covered the car in mud. See, no squealing. That was my best memory. So
Yeah. That's just like
amazing.
the shows with where they're shooting and they never have to reload. So
yeah,
the
exactly.
people
Right.
editing this stuff don't have a clue.
Right.
John Wick. Now they did a really good job with John Wick, showing all those shots and him reloading and throwing it off.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Right.
that one they did a really
Right,
good
because
job.
he's gotten into it big time. He's actually done training and everything, so he understands that. So I think he probably said, "Look, we're doing it this way."
Right.
Yeah, who was it? The last one they did. They did. Was it? I don't know. Who was in the woman? Was it Halle Berry? Who was in the last one with them? Well, they did that gun training course, and it was crazy what they had to teach them to do.
Well,
Yeah.
Terran Tactical is the one that's their advisor, and that he's gone out there and trained with those guys out west. So yeah. Actually, those are in the last couple episode shows. They're actually Terran Tactical firearms that they built for that show.
Oh, wow.
So
Today's podcast is sponsored by Motorhead Digital. Motorhead Digital are digital marketing experts for your automotive aftermarket, restoration, performance, race, and restyling shop. They help you supercharge your shop's website, social media, and entire online presence to attract those badass customers you're looking for. Check us out at motorheaddigital.com.
what, as far as your shop goes, what's the major project you're working on? Do you have any key project that's like your favorite that you're working on right now?
I'm really liking how these three Mopars are coming together right now. Because they're three different cars. We have two different guys working on two of them right now. And to watch one fabricate on one car and one guy fabricate on the other car using the customer's input to put the cars together. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun watching your employees take your name and build what's in their head. So I like watching these three cars being built. The mechanics side of it, Kevin and Steve, what they're doing with there's another Mercur in the shop and the Mustang, how they can make all the old and the new work together. But I'd probably say the favorite one right now are the three Mopars. I can't pick one over all out of the three because they both have style, but it's watching the guys and what they put into the car, the passion they have, and we let them use we guide them, but they use their imagination and their vision to build the cars. So it's really nice.
Oh, that's cool. You had told me you had a shell of a car, a Mopar. Is that one of those, or is that still a future project?
It's a future project. 69 Charger is a future project that we're going to be working on. We got to get through these other ones first because this 69 is more of a back burner, our own kind of deal. So
cool. I want to ask you about some personal stuff. You had, when we do onboarding here, we ask you lots of questions, and you have mentioned your family and stuff, but you're doing camping and family time. Tell us about that, because you're actually pulling back from the shop a little bit right at night anyways, where you're spending time with family.
Yeah, it's really important. The boys, my wife's, or our boys, but my wife's boys, they didn't have a lot of exposure to this side of the industry. So it's fun taking them to shows, learning and growing with them, and having my influence with them, and then making the time to do it. We found that we're spending a lot of time at the shop, and it's good, but it's a double-edged sword, because we talk about those families that don't teach their kids or can't teach their kids because there isn't time. I've kind of tried to make a point to spend time with them. And even our daughter, like, we take her, to the shows, to the beach. We try to do, if I'm doing woodworking, let her help paint, that kind of stuff. It's just taking a step back from the busy life, even though it somehow adds stress to your busy life, because there's always something you get done from the day before that while she's playing in the sandbox or painting boards, you're thinking, I've got to get this done tomorrow. Right. But I think it's very important that I heed my own advice. If I'm going to bring kids in that I have no familiar connection to, then I should be bringing in my own kids and spending time with them on that level. And if I'm going to preach it, I got to practice it. So my wife and I have made a pretty good effort of trying to make sure that we're involved as much as we can be, whether it's playing video games, having a movie night, getting to the beach, going on vacation, whatever it is. Like, and it's not extravagant. It's mostly small stuff because of the timing. They want to go to SEMA, but they can't go till they're 16.
Right.
We'll get there at some point. But yeah, just making sure I've taken enough time as a dad, and I've spent a lot of time helping the people here grow. So I want to help my kids grow too.
But I mean, exactly. It is the small things, right? Like, it isn't the big extravagant things. Because I can tell you some of the best memories that I have growing up with my dad teaching me how to wrench on cars was absolutely 100% all the little things. It wasn't like, oh, hey, something specific or big, you know, it was just all those little moments that as a kid growing up that you just like bank, right? Like, you're banking all of those little times.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, that's, you know, the benefit of growing older is now you get to tap into some of those little banks and, you know, oh yeah, I remember this, and be able to share it and you know, kind of pass that down to your own children.
Yeah, it's like you said, you hit it a nail on the head at the little moments. Like, you know, building a fort with them, showing them how to put it together. You know, it's all cushions and tent poles and kitchen tables or whatever it is. You know, when the boys first moved in with me, just before COVID, they were moved in the January just before COVID hit, and the thing we did was we built a fort with them, and they slept in the first summer of COVID. They slept in that fort the entire summer.
No kidding.
That's where they spent their whole time. So that was 4 years ago, and they still talk about it. And now they're building forts with their little sister, building tunnels and incorporated her crib into it and all that other kind of stuff. So now I'm too old to lay down on the ground. I got bad knees. I can't get into the, so now I'm like, hey, you guys built it. You can play in it with her.
Right.
I set up the big screen. We put a big tent over the TV so it looks like it's like a movie theater. So we hang the blankets over it and watch a movie from inside the fort. But
that's awesome.
So it's good. It's a lot. It's all those little things, teaching them to cook, you know, fishing, whatever it is. So.
Yeah,
exactly. Those are things I remember. Annette talked about wrenching with her dad. I learned the lost art of working on drum brakes from my dad. So, you know, that's something I remember, and I can do it with my eyes closed. So, not that I want to.
Well, I think when I was working on the race cars, we were rebuilding carburetors, and I mean, I could do it, but we haven't installed a carburetor on a car in 10 years. It's all been fuel injection stuff. Not to say that Steve can't work his way through it or I can't work my way through it. It's just a lost technology, right?
It is.
So
I can say I'm tearing apart the interior of my 69 Corvette. And it's
how's that going?
It's right now it's just sitting there because I haven't been feeling well, but now I have to find panels for it. I have to do other stuff. I'm looking at it and finding wiring that needs to be fixed.
All those little plastic Velcro tab things you got to stick on, and they all break and fall off. And
well, there's one strip that goes underneath the back window that is supposed to be like 2 screws and those Velcro tabs. They glued it on. It does not come off. Okay. I'm looking at it going, what are these? Because I have all the build layouts where it's all taken apart and it shows everything what the build sheets they use in the factory, not build sheet. There's a plan, I guess. Yeah. And I'm looking at this going, there's a lot of screws here that don't look like they're supposed to be. So I took them all out and it's like, it still doesn't come off. I'm like, what the hell, they glue this freaking thing on here? And then other parts that are the tabs that are broke, and everybody's saying, don't buy the remanufactured stuff. I pulled the center out of the shift console, right? I bought a new one and it had little cracks on the corner. I pulled it off and it went bloop, flattened right out. It'd been broken for years, but it's, when I look at the picture that it was in our last newsletter, it's kind of scary looking. So I've been taking lots of pictures. So I remember how to put it back together. But I've had the dash all apart in the past a long time ago, and we'll get it. But I was going to put a radio in it, and I decided, hey, Randall, I need some carpet. Might as well do carpet. And the whole project is,
cars are built from the ground up, Barry. You got to remember foundation, and then the floor, and the sound deadening, and then the radio.
Right. So I'm looking at sound deadening as well. So I got the carpet and the proper backing for sound deadening, but I'm looking at put other sound deadening in. And yeah, the radio is going to be a while yet, because that's where I started with getting the radio. And then I
saw that. I saw your little post. I'm like, wow, he's already ready for the radio. He sounds like a customer.
No, it's not. It's still in the boxes. Yeah. So anyway, so finding parts for Corvettes is always fun. So that's where my
Yes.
challenge is right now. And it's getting to be winter. And so I'll be working out there with a salamander, I'm sure.
It doesn't get any better or any easier when you go to a purpose-built car, Barry, just so you know. Like for the C7 that we have, like we had to source a new glass front end because we wrecked the car, and that was a whole issue in itself. So yeah, like it doesn't get any easier.
No, I'm
matter
not
what
whining.
year
I'm
it
just
is.
saying, man, Jesse, everybody that does this for a living, more power to you. I don't think I could do it every day.
There are days, man. We have a 69 Lincoln in here, and take it all apart and fix the power windows and test them out 10 times, and it works. Put it back together, windows don't work. What's going on? And then it's like, take it apart, put the window motors, and you don't want to replace parts. You want to find the problem.
Right.
And we've every which way we've had this car apart, and it's like the bane of my existence right now.
It's fighting you in every direction.
Well, my BOCE, we have BOCES here. It's a tech school during high school, and I went to auto services junior and senior year, and our teacher was very adamant, we are not parts replacers. And this is back when you rebuild fuel pumps and starters and things like that, right? So I hear you.
Yeah. And it could be, because at the end of the day, it's the customer's money, but it's also your time. Yeah. And sometimes you got to admit defeat. We don't like to admit defeat, so we're gonna get this car figured out. But everybody in the shop is just scratching their head. My brother, who's like the wiring guru, and the mechanics, and Tyler, who knows the car inside and out, we're all just kind of scratching our head. You test the wiring, yes, it's got continuity, but there's no way to test how much amperage is going through that possibly corroded wiring. So when you run the motor off a test drill or you run the switches off it, it all works. But then you go to put it back under the car's power, where it works 10 times, and then it doesn't. So, who knows?
Well, that, you talk about that. I've had the whole gauge cluster out of the 69 and the dash pad off. Went to, sign out the gauges to get fixed. This is 10 years ago, right? Went to put it back together. You have to have that wiring harness that runs across in the perfect spot. It has to be right in the perfect spot, or the stuff will not go back together. It's that tight in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, it drove me nuts.
Are you doing a resto mod on it, or are you trying to do a strict restoration on it? Or?
Let's say it's a number matching car, but I don't have any documentation, so that's why we're putting a more modern radio in it. We're adding some modern stuff, Willwood brakes, things like that, TKX transmission, but I'm not getting too farther. Yeah. Too much farther than that. I may go with fuel injection someday.
You got to go fuel injection.
I have tri-power though, so I know they make tri-power fuel injection now, so it's very enticing to me. But that's a number matching.
It's cumbersome to get it all to work properly, but yeah, they're fun.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to go there, but I want to make it more drivable. We're going to put some bent steel suspension parts on it, and things to make it more.
So you're resto modding it, nice.
Yeah. The long and short of it is
it's a resto mod.
It's a resto mod, and it's going to cost me lots of money.
It's the automotive industry, Barry. Welcome to it. Yes. We all spend entirely too much money on it.
Look, that's why I'm not working on it every day, because I want to have fun and enjoy it. So I'm working on it when I in the mood and can deal with it. Because I, like you, Jesse, I get very frustrated very quickly sometime, and I'm very determined to figure something out. My biggest concern is, and I've been taking lots of pictures, that I remember how to put everything back together. So I'm bagging and tagging everything. I know how to do that. It doesn't go in a big bucket. But anyways, so we have a cool thing called a speed round here, and Annette is the expert at that. So
I am. But actually, I have a question for you before we get into the speed round.
Let's do that.
So you had mentioned, which again, I'm a huge fan of, that it's cool for you now to take and see the knowledge that you have learned through your years, and to watch the kids that are in your shop now kind of take their creative license and build their versions of, what you guys are working on, right? To kind of take their own ingenuity within scope, right? I absolutely love that you guys are doing that. But where my question is that now that you've had the chance to, you went through that, like, okay, I learned it, I grew up through it, now I'm able to bring younger generations into it, and yet I get to watch them do that and kind of get that that happiness and joy from watching them do that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Expressing themselves. But what would you tell the younger you, right? Like if you took all the knowledge and everything that you've seen and everything that you experienced to right now, what would you tell the younger you?
Stop, get out, don't do it.
No,
No,
this is the
no,
wrong
I mean,
answer.
Wrong answer.
No, I think it just goes back to that. Be comfortable with who you are and do it your own way. Because growing up, we all saw like chip booths, and you look at the Ring Brothers, and you look what all these other incredible builders are doing.
Yeah.
But if you look at what they're all doing their own thing. They have
Right.
their own confidence, their own skill set, and they're doing it their way. So don't try to be somebody else. Be your own. Be yourself, and be comfortable knowing what you know. So.
And I think that like you're like you had said, you're practicing what you preach, right? Because you said it yourself, your own words, that you're loving being able to see those kids come in and put their own spin, take what's creatively in their mind and build it out, right? So you are practicing what you're preaching, and I love that. And so that's why I wanted to ask the question to see if there was like maybe something different that you would share based on that, but you're true to that, and I love that you came right back to that.
Like I said, because what that does, because like I said before, JH doesn't do anything the same way twice. Well, we've got 15 employees that we allow, for the most part, to do things their own way. So now it's not my way. When we go to a show, it's like, this is what this guy brought to the table. His specific part of the build. He goes out and sees that, or she goes out and sees that in her car on a world stage, and then that gets them excited. So it drives everybody forward all the time.
Heck yeah. And it makes them bigger advocates, not only for your shop, but for what you do, right? And how that influences the industry.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. All right. So now that my question is out of the way. So the way that our speed round works is I don't want you to put too much thought in your responses. I actually want it to be whatever comes to the top of your mind. And we're going to go through a couple of questions and just, again, quick and easy.
Sure.
So first one is, what's your favorite race driver, team, hot rod, muscle car, or truck?
Oh, Richard Petty.
Oh, okay.
Always
Richard
was a big
Petty
fan.
right there, 43, brother.
Always a big fan. He was the driver I wanted to see on NASCAR. He's the one I wanted to watch all the way through on race day. So yeah, with Richard Petty. I loved his his determination and his involvement with his kids in the sport. Always loved it.
Nice. I love that. Next question. What is your favorite tool in your toolbox?
My eraser. Just you screw up and you erase the mistake. No, I don't know. A flat screwdriver, because I go in there, I pry paint cans on with it, and I pry bezels off with it. I don't know. That first thing that comes to my mind is a flat screwdriver.
Technically, the first thing that came to your mind was
it was the eraser.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Do you have a favorite racetrack, an event, or maybe a car show?
I really like the exposure in Good Guys. I love the shows, the variety. It was the first one I went to that was like mind-boggling when you walked in, because we're used to local shows here. So what Good Guys does with the events, I think that would probably mind any of the Good Guys stuff. They get involved with the autocross, the racing. You have the high show cars. You got the guys that build their own. There's just a lot, and the variety is huge. It's the closest. It's the closest big event to us. Is Good Guys.
Is there any specific Good Guys show that you like? Because I know there's a number of them throughout the country.
The Columbus event. It's the biggest one, and it's the closest one to us. It's the easiest one for us to get out and get away to, and it was the one that we got to meet all the big guys when we made it there. So. Always been
So I'm going to segue real quick because you hit on something. So is there anybody that you, for lack of a better term, that you fanboy over?
Really do like what Jonathan Goolsby does with his business model. He's a very low key guy, but he's got this really quirky, awesome personality. But I like what he's done with the industry, with the youth, what he does to promote his business, and his dedication to his craft. Really enjoy what he does.
Nice. Love it. All right, I'll get back to my speed round. So.
Don't show Jonathan that part now.
All right, so this last question that I ask stumps every one of our guests. So if you think on it a bit, it's okay. Mm-hmm. What is the best advice you've ever received, and from whom?
Don't have to think about it. If you're going to do something right, if you're going to do something, do it right the first time. It was my dad.
Nice. I love that. I love that it came back to your core, right? It came back to where you started.
It's the very cool. Probably the first lesson that we learned as a kid, that I remember learning as a kid. Like whether it's cutting lawn, building Legos, putting your clothes away. Don't waste your time. Mm-hmm. Do it right the first time, and you won't have to do it again.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true.
I learned that a long time ago. I found out the hard way by not having the right tools. You know, get the right tools when you start, because you're going to end up doing things over and over again, right? So that's the same kind of thing. Do it right the first time, get the right tools for the job. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Both my dad and my husband have drilled into my head of like, if you took it out of the toolbox from a certain place, put it back in the toolbox in that same place.
That one was lacking on our end. My brother and I are slobs. My dad did a good job, but I think somewhere in there he didn't make us pick up after ourselves, because we don't.
So you're the one that goes, where's that flathead screwdriver now that I need it?
I know where it is. It's not where it should be. It's where I left it. It's under the carpet in the customer's car. It's in the console toolbox.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Well, it's hilarious to you guys and in this conversation, but man, the guys in the shop hate it. We'll come in and we'll be working on a job, and we're most notorious for, okay, we need that screwdriver, so we do that job, and then we leave the screwdriver right there, and we go on and do another job, and it's still there 2 days later because we didn't come back. Because our mind is like in the moment, get it done, and then forget to clean up after.
Yeah, that's why my husband is always like, put it back. Put it back where you took it from. Put it back.
Yeah, I try to instill it in my kids, but then they're like, but Jesse, you didn't put the plates away either.
You're like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, that's a life lesson too. I guess that would be my dad's second one, was do as I say, not as I do. But yeah, I think we all get that. And that's the best response I've ever had as a parent. I'm like, yes, I get to use it.
Yep.
So true. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Cool. Well, that's it. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Jesse, for joining us today. We've had a awesome time.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun. Annette, Barry, really, really appreciated it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great meeting you. It was absolutely awesome learning about your business, learning about some of the ups and downs and the experiences that you've had, and things that, you shared with our audience to help them grow and be better in their businesses. And just overall be more open to different things. So again, yes, thank you so much for joining the podcast. And always, Gearheads and Gasoline is here fueling your success.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
We know you don't want to miss an episode, so don't forget to smash that bell so that you get notified of every new episode. Click that like button, leave us a comment, and share with your people. And visit us repeatedly. We love it.